Good morning, Fairfield Christian. You may notice I have not shaved. I also need to shave my head. I haven't shaved all weekend, and that's because I was camping all weekend because I went to a men's retreat. It was fantastic. We had a great speaker, but I did some camping outside, and I didn't get a whole lot of sleep over the weekend, especially last night, because there were a lot of people up late just having a good time, and I could not get to sleep. So I'm a little tired, a little worn out. I haven't shaved, so I'm going to make this video a little quick today. So I can get some stuff done before the week begins. So once again, we're in scripture memorization. We are looking at people of the Bible, and this week we are looking at Deborah. Deborah is a fantastic person of the Bible. First of all, she was one of the judges. Now, when you think of judge, you usually think of somebody in a black robe who sits in a courtroom and presides over that courtroom. The judges of Israel were not exactly like that. You see, Israel, after they had taken the land that God had promised, the problem is they did take the land, but they didn't take the whole land like God had told them to. And because of their disobedience, there were still other people living in the land who would come and persecute them from time to time. In fact, the Israelites would go from worshiping God to falling into sin, and then God would send another nation to come persecute them. And then the people would be in service as many times slaves of this other nation. They would cry out to God, "Oh God, help us, help us, help us." God would raise up a judge. The judge would lead the people into victory over that other nation or that other tribe or those other people that had come to persecute them. And then they would fall back into worshiping God for a period of time. And then they fell back into sin, and the whole cycle would repeat over and over and over and over again. So Deborah is one of the judges. She's been raised up to lead the people. She is also a prophetess. One of the roles of a prophetess is to lead the people in obedience to God. And so she's doing that. She's mediating over things. She's leading the people in obeying God. And there's this other army that comes to persecute the Israelites. And she has this general who leads the armies. His name is Barak. And Barak, he's the person in our verse this week that we're talking about. So let's get right into the verse, and we'll kind of go from the story from there. Judges 4, 8 through 10. Barak told her, "I will go, but only if you go with me." "Very well," she replied, "I will go with you, but you will receive no honor in this venture, for the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. At Kadesh, Barak called together the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 warriors went up with him. Deborah also went with him. So there are lots of things we can talk about Deborah, and hopefully we'll talk about those things throughout the week and then again in chapel on Friday. But there's one thing I want to point out today. Barak was not real excited about going out, even though God was going with him. But for Barak, and we don't know a whole lot about Barak. We don't know what his character was like. We don't know what his background was like. We see him in this story, and we can make some judgments about him just based on the story. But he did not want to go if God was going with him. He wanted Deborah to go with him, which means he was relying on human strength rather than God's strength. That's not a good thing. But when you listen to the story there, Deborah said that she would go with him. She knew that God was enough. She knew that God was enough for Barak. Because if God goes with Barak, then there's nothing that he can't do, and he can win against this very strong army. She knew that. But she did agree to go with him because she was a good leader. And maybe Barak was not in a position yet to really learn and know how to trust in God. So Deborah went with him to show him how to trust in God. And that's what leaders do. Leaders don't just leave people out there to figure things out on their own. A leader sometimes has to lead by example. And so Deborah went with them so that she could tell them what to do all along the way. And that's important. As leaders, as we are leading other people, and you guys, by the way, even though you're just students, you are leaders. Number one, you can lead other people to Christ. That's important. In many situations, even though you're not the leader of the classroom, that would be your teacher, there might be times where you're a leader of a group on campus. At times, we're all called to lead certain things, and as leaders sometimes need to step forward and show what other people need to do by example. And Deborah did that. She lived it out. She didn't just sit back and say, "You go do this. I said so." She said, "All right, you're not capable of doing this. You're not capable of trusting in God. Here, I'll go with you and I'll show you how to trust in God." And again, there are lots of other things we can learn from Deborah in her life, but if there's anything else, it's sometimes we need to lead by example. Sometimes we have to show other people how to do things, including how to live for Christ. Other people may not know how to live for Christ. Maybe they're doing things incorrectly. Maybe they're not following Jesus the way that they should. And you know how we can help them? We can show them by the way that we follow Christ. We make sure we're doing the right thing so that when they see our example, they'll want to follow that example too. And hopefully it helps them to grow in their walk with Jesus. All right. Again, I got lots of stuff to do. I'm going to cut this a little short, but we will talk about this throughout the week. We'll learn more about Deborah as we go on throughout the week. I hope you guys have a great week. I will see you guys around campus. God bless.